Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire magazine, the premier inspirational magazine that has been inspiring women to live their best lives for over 10 years now. I'm also the 8-time best-selling publisher behind the boutique publishing company InspiredLivingPublishing.com, which is dedicated to giving visionary female entrepreneurs, coaches, health practitioners, and creatives a voice and a high-profile media and publishing platform to share their wisdom, enhance their expert status, and bring their brand out of the shadows as a published author. All of my brands, including today's show, are dedicated to inspiring women to live their best lives. So welcome. You know, my family has always said, Linda, you can't go through life being a creative spirit. And I've been hearing that since I was 10 years old. I was always one of those free spirits, and I took art lessons for, over 20 years. And I always needed, wasn't even a want, it was a need to follow that source of my inspiration. But of course, what happens? We try to fit in to what other people's expectations are. And I know what that internal struggle feels like. And like my guest, who believes that we're all born to create, and so many women believe that they aren't creative, or worse, that their creative work isn't important. And that's why I'm so excited about today's show. So joining me today is intuitive creativity coach Amber. Now, let me get this name right. Kuileimailani Bonnici. And moving forward, I'll be saying Amber. And Amber is joining me to help you awaken your creativity. And she'll be sharing the 4 main steps to birth the ideas you have in your head into the world. Finally, because you are a creative being. You're the essence of all that is, so of course you're creative. So let's own that. So allow me to officially introduce Amber. Amber is the founder of TheRadiantMama.com. She's a visionary and intuitive creativity coach who helps women access their creative power. Her work has been featured in the UN Commission on the Status of Women and Women's Rights in Artist Perspective. Amber has helped tens of thousands of women through her Woman Unleashed online retreats. And I just participated in her most recent one. It was blessed that Aspire magazine was a sponsor for 2016, and we will be the sponsor for her winter 2017. And it's all about helping women access their creative power. She has, using the feminine powers of intuition, creativity, and embodiment, she mentors women and to get their creative work out of their heads into the world through her private and group mentorship programs. Again, her popular Women Unleashed online retreats have attracted over 10,000 women, and I have a feeling after this most recent event, that's even a bigger number. She lives on the Big Island of Hawaii with her husband and 2 boys, and when she's not working, she enjoys dancing hula, painting, and swimming with the dolphins. Welcome, beautiful.
Aloha. So happy to be here, Linda.
Now, I've always loved your energy, your message. I love the work you're doing in the world to reconnect women with their truth, with their creative soul, and to own it, And as someone, as I said at the beginning of the call, I'm going to be 54 this month, and I struggled for many years trying to stuff my creative soul and my creative gifts down so I could fit into what the world expected of me. And I stopped doing that I became an entrepreneur in 92. And Amber, since I owned the truth of who I am and allowed my creative self to lead the way, my life opened up in ways that I can't even explain. So let's dive right in, because I want you to share, because you've worked with so many women Why do you believe creativity is so important?
Oh my gosh. I believe that we are actually born to create, like that we are wired to create. I believe, everyone has their belief, but I believe that Creator gave us this desire to create, to share, and that comes through lots of different avenues, whether it be art, or it can be movement, or it can be cooking or gardening. But there's this self-expression, this connection to our uniqueness that only happens when we're creating. And so if we don't access that, or like you said, if we stuff it, worse if we stuff it, then there's this whole part of ourselves that we've cut off. And in the United States, I share this statistic that in second grade, so kids who are like 8 or 9 years old, if you ask them if they're creative, 95% of them believe they're creative. And by the time they're in fifth grade, which is like age 10, only 50% believe they're creative. And by the time they're in high school, 14, 15, 16 years old, only 5% believe they're creative.
Whoa.
And a lot of women are still living this idea that they bought, when they were younger, that they're not creative. And so part of my mission is just to remind women, like, oh my gosh, we are creative. Like, you give a kid a crayon and they know what to do with it. They have fun, But somehow as we get older, we just start to dim ourselves. And that creative side, we think it's only for certain people. But no, I believe that we're all born with it and that we have to do it, that there's a part of our soul that is asking for that, that's aching for that. And that when we do, then a whole other world opens up to us.
And so true. And I love what you said, that we're all creative. I, like you, believe that it's an innate way that we were wired, and it's a connection to our source, whatever our source may be. That part doesn't matter. It's just this divine connection that flows through us. And for some of us, it could be painting. Some others are writing. Some could be crafts. There is no one way to be creative. It's the one way that, or more, that resonates with your truth. And that's what I love about creativity, right? It's birth through us.
Yeah, and it's I love that it's our uniqueness, right? You're talking about something birthing through us, and there's this thing that, like, I'm a mom and, I birth kids, but I know a lot of women who haven't birthed children, but we still all have this archetype. We all have this desire to create, to birth something. And like I said, once you start going there, whew, the world just opens up with possibility. And a lot of it is because, we break through this idea that, oh, I'm not creative. And, a lot of that comes from comparison, thinking like, oh, this is creative, this isn't creative. Like you said, painting, writing, there's so many different things. But, if you look at like installation art, like crazy art stuff that's out there that sells for gazillions of dollars, it's kind of silly, like some of the stuff. There's like toilet paper rolls that are like, attached to a wall. You've got like donuts on nails on a wall. That's considered art. I mean, you've got Rothko's, which are like $18 million paintings, which are just like a big square, thing of color. And so art is really all about whatever inspires you, whatever, spices you up, whatever lights you up.
Now, have you always been able to own your creativity, or is it something that you had to rediscover again?
Yeah, no, I think this is part of my gift when I work with people. I really work with a lot of beginners, is that I know exactly what it feels like to believe that, for me to believe I wasn't creative. I was one of those kids that, it was like second or third grade. I remember I used to love writing stories of, little horses, and I draw pictures. And I remember around that time believing that I wasn't creative. Like, my teacher told me that you couldn't make money at art. I don't even remember. It was an offhand comment, but I remember that. And then also she said something about my horse, that my horse didn't look like real horses or something. And it might have just been like completely, I don't even remember, but I remember at the time what I took was that I am not creative. This is not my path. And so I stopped. I stopped all of that, and I actually went into the band route, which is another form of creativity. I played instruments all through elementary school, junior high school. And then it was when I was, I went into retail management marketing. I was on the career path, high-powered entrepreneur. And then I decided to have kids, and I wanted to stay home as a mom. And during that time, I went through a really dark time, Linda, where I really just lost myself. I was spending so much time with my kids, and it was like days and days of like diapers and feedings and naps, and all I could see in front of me was the same thing over and over again. And I remember feeling like I've lost my spirit. I lost my adventurous spark. And during that time I prayed. I said, okay, God, I need something because I am, I'm in a dark place. And I found a book called The Gift of a Year. And in it, the author asks you to choose one thing to do for yourself for a year, just one thing. And I heart-stormed of all the things I used to love to do when I was younger, and writing and art, drawing came up for me. And very shortly after, I got an email with an invitation to a mentorship program to do writing and painting. And I was like, oh, it was like the angels were singing. I was like, oh, this is it. And I was so happy to do something for me. And so when I first started creating again, like I hadn't picked up a paintbrush, like, I don't know, maybe since I was in first grade. But it was like, this is just for me. I don't care what people think. It's not about, it has to be beautiful. It's just like to feed my soul, and I know that this will do it.
Oh, I love that. And I believe that when we open ourselves up, the universe brings us exactly what we need. So I love that book came into your life and really shifted things. And we're going to talk more about creativity and so much more when we come back from our break. And we'll be chatting more with Amber of theradiantmama.com.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. I'm talking with Amber of theradiantmama.com, and we were just really diving into the topic of creativity and why it is so important, and why, yes, you are creative too. And Amber, just before break, you were sharing how that one book came into your life that really shifted everything for you. But I want to say, too, you took action. A lot of people, we read books, I've been guilty of it, or take a course, but we always miss the next step, which is taking action. You really committed to following this path, and it sounds like you committed to the full year of discovering this part of yourself.
Yeah, I did, Linda, but I think there were a couple of things that helped me with the action. One, I was just desperate. I mean, I was really at the end of my rope. My husband, at the time, he had a business, and he would be traveling, be gone 3 months out of the year, and be back for like 10 days, 3 months, 10 days. So it was me, my 2-year-old, and a baby, and I just needed something. And so that was like a lifeline for me. And the second piece was that when I did sign up for the 6-month course, it was like that was a 6-month commitment right there. And I remember thinking, okay, this 6 months, at the time it was a big investment for me to spend that much money on myself, let alone on art stuff. But it was like that was kind of a container for me. It was like, okay, I knew that this was coming every time. And then lastly was I knew what things that would stop me, my kids, as far as all the different things. So nap time became like my sacred time. I'd put them both down for naps. I knew, okay, I have at least an hour. And I said, I am not doing the dishes. I am not going to be doing, all these other things in my mind I should be doing, I'm going to take this time and spend it on my soul and on my art.
What a beautiful gift you gave yourself. And how many years ago was that? I'm curious.
That was in the beginning of 2010. So
look at where we are 6 years later.
Yeah.
You are at the forefront of this creativity movement, and you bring together women from around the world through the Woman Unleashed online retreats and your private work that you're doing. When you picked up that book that day in desperation, could you ever have imagined how following the path of creativity would lead you to the life you're living now?
No, and it actually brings tears to my eyes because I'm being so like at the bottom, and feeling so down. And it's just amazing what happens. What happened for me when I listened to the voice of spirit, when I took action on that, and more importantly, that I decided to do something for me. It was like after giving to so many other people, it was like the time was ripe for me to give to myself.
And I think that feeling will speak to so many women who are listening right now, because we all have that tendency as women to put ourselves at the end of our to-do list. And I've been on that other side, like you, where I was in this dark box in my 20s and 30s that I didn't know how to get out of. I don't know if I would call it depression, but it was not a fun place to be, put it that way. And when you come out the other side and start following your heart, following your intuition, following your gifts, there's so much light and joy and brightness that just comes into you. And so I really love that you are so open about sharing your journey of where you were and where you are now, because if anyone watches even one of your videos, Amber, I just watched another one, and I'm not sure when it was from. It's one of your blog posts, and you are sitting back in a chair, and you kind of like, it was quiet when the video first opened, and you start giggling, and you said, do you know what that is? That's silence. It was like you were just embracing the moment, and I started laughing. I'm like, when you have children on, you forget what silence can be. But I just love the pure essence of who you were, the joy that was coming from you in that moment. So thank you for sharing your truth so openly, because I know the joy that you exude now and share with so many others, and you help us reconnect with that within us. So thank you for sharing your gifts. I just wanted to make sure I said that.
You're welcome. I love the point which you just made about, when we align with our intuition, with our spirit, how things shift. I think that alignment is such an important piece that many times as women we can just get into our day-to-day activity, like getting up, getting the kids ready for school, or, going to work, whatever our, day-to-day is. And we don't have the time to actually pause and be like, whoa, is this really nourishing to me? Is this really feeding my soul? Is this really important? And, when I created the Women Unleashed retreats, part of it was to give women that pause, to be like, okay, honey, let's go ahead and just align and see, is this really what's important to you? And to have that time, just like you do for your magazines, Linda, to give women that moment to be like, this is an opportunity to wake up. each time. It's an opportunity to wake up, to change your trajectory, to look at like, okay, is the steps I'm taking, is it taking me where I want to go? So I love that piece you said about alignment.
Well, it's really important for me. I have to feel it as above, so below. So I always need to feel that from my source all the way through me, and that's when I know I'm on the right path, right? Whether it's create birth in a magazine or playing with my children, it's always staying in that alignment with source. And in this case, we're talking about creativity, which I believe is from source. So let's talk about the women who feel they are not creative. And I have a sister who always said, she said this for 50 years, I'm not the creative one, I'm not creative. But when she sits down to do a special little project or anything, I'm like, Kim, how can you say you're not creative? But I think it's a comparison thing. Do you find that too?
Yeah, totally. Like I said, in my journey, when I was really young and I made the choice that I wasn't creative and I adopted that story, it was because I wasn't creative in a certain medium, meaning drawing. Like I couldn't make my drawings look exactly the way I thought they should. And so from that point on, I said, oh, I'm not creative, right? So there's this idea, if you're listening and if you have a story that you're not creative, you have a story in your head of who is creative, right? And so it's someone in your mind that's either a painter or they are, they do sculpting or maybe they dress very exotically and act like an artist. I don't know. Those are the creative people, right? But there's so many different options, so many different flavors of creativity. Our brain is actually made to be creative. Half of it is dedicated to creativity. And you have access to that half of your brain just like the other half that, does tasks and lists. So when I think of creativity, we can look at it in terms of like specific art medium, like painting or dancing or music or gardening or art journaling, quilting, knitting. There's so many of those things. But then also if you look at it in terms of business, in terms of life, we have to use our creative brains to come up with solutions. They talk about creative problem solving. It's not just problem solving. You're creative. You're using your brain in a creative way to think of things that haven't been thought of before. To use your brain in a way to open up to different possibilities. And that's what really creativity is about is, yes, we all have the ability, you have the ability to tap into resources, side of your brain, tap into ideas that you didn't have before and to share them. And that's really what we're doing. And so there's that as far as just using your mind. And then there's the actual piece of bringing it into form, taking whatever you have into your head and actually bringing it out. That might like actually from the story in your head to writing it down or to typing it out. It can be, having an image in your mind and then painting it or drawing it, or having a vision and then dancing it. Or, there's so many different ways, but there's that transition then from, your creative thinking into actually creating something.
I love that because I used to say to her, stop comparing yourself just because I can paint and draw. Don't convince yourself you're not creative because you don't paint and draw. You have other creative gifts, and she does. I'm always enthralled by what she births to the world in her own unique way. And so I'm glad we talked about that because I find with even so many of my friends, they get into the, comparison, and comparison's the thief of joy. And I think it when we do that, we're not giving ourselves credit for the gifts that we have, but we're also not owning our truth.
I think also, if we're going to compare ourselves to people, like compare yourself to people that you think are like, that make gazillions, that have made so much money from their art, but whose art looks like crazy to you. Like if you think about like Picasso, if you look at his latest works, they're just like crazy line drawings. It's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, like
pay a lot of money for that.
I love it. I compare you
on a wall,
Yeah, like look up the ladder, in other words, and say, listen, if Picasso can do that with some line drawings, look what I'm doing. And I love that vibe and that energy. And one of the other things I love too, being part of the recent Woman Unleashed retreat, is a lot of the creative exercises that were shared by yourself and your guest speakers. I loved watching the women bring the same project to life and show their work, and the same project looked completely different for every woman, but they were all individually beautiful and perfect. Does that make sense? Like, you could see the soul of every woman in their way of doing it. To me, that was powerful to see that we can all do our work in our own unique way, and even though it started as the same project, we all bring our essence to it, and that's what makes our creativity unique.
Yeah, I think I love that piece about community, right? It's like, I'm not good enough, but comparing me like, oh my gosh, look at all the flavors.
Yeah, that's what I loved. I loved being part of that community in the group, because every time someone shared here's my journal cover that they designed, everyone's journal cover was different, but I loved the community you created where everyone appreciated everyone's creative vision. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to be a part of it. It was beautiful to witness. So when we come back from the break, we are going to dive more into this topic, and we're also going to talk about, I'm going to ask Amber about what some of the main things that stop women from creating and what they can do about it. And we'll be back in a moment with Amber of theradiantmama.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
We can all use a little more peace and joy in our lives. Don't you agree? Counselor, best-selling author, and self-nurturing expert Kelly Grimes of CultivatingPeaceandJoy.com is passionate about empowering overwhelmed and exhausted women to live with more peace, joy, and meaning through the practice of self-nurturing. Through her experience working with individuals, speaking, providing workshops, and teaching professional and leadership development to forward-thinking organizations, Kelly knows that nurturing peace in the world begins from the inside out. That's why she created the free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app that brings you beautiful self-nurturing reminders, guided meditations, empowering practice tools, and daily prompts with an inspiring question to guide your daily self-nurturing practice. Download your free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app today at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com.
Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Hey, America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hi, you're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and joining me today is Amber Bonnici of theradiantmama.com. And right before the break, we were talking about creativity and comparison and so much other juicy stuff. And right before the break, I asked her what you see, Amber, as some of the main things that stop women from creating, and most importantly, what they can do about that.
Yeah, we touched briefly on one that is the belief, right, that I'm not creative. Mm-hmm. So we touched on that briefly before the break, but there are some other ones that are really common that stop women from creating. One is their actual energy, that they are tired.
Oh, yeah.
They're pooped. We're tired or we're pooped, and it's like coming home and like, oh, I just want to sleep, or I've got, that piece. So one is, amping up your energy and starting to, connect to that. So that's one area. Another one is schedule. I don't have the time for that. That I find, which is a deeper thing underneath that, is there is this belief that creativity isn't as important as, and then you fill in the blank, right? So that's really why women aren't fitting it in. Is they don't believe it's as important as other things that they're doing. So, for example, they might have something scheduled, and then, their mother-in-law drops by and they've got to go do something, and then next thing you know, they're not doing their creativity. So they've kind of, it's been hijacked a bit, right? So that energy, schedule, the whole thing of they don't know how, I don't know how to do that. And so sometimes that will stop them from even trying because they kind of feel like, oh, it's something new, I don't know how to do that. And then, like I touched briefly, like on the mother-in-law example, is boundaries too. So setting boundaries that feel really good for, your art, looking at like why your art's important to you, setting boundaries for that, and then holding those boundaries when other stuff comes up. So those are the things that stop women from creating.
And you know what, too? I noticed that a lot of the things you mentioned that stop women from creating are also in life in general, right? I believe we all have the same 24 hours in every day. It's our choice how we spend them. So we either give away our power or our time, or we own it, right? And so when you realize that you're as important as anything else in your schedule, and you stop prioritizing your schedule that way, and I had to learn that the hard way because I've always been at the end of my to-do list. And so when I started really saying, no, I need to make time. If taking an art class is what makes me feel good, I put that in. I don't wait to see what's left at the end of the month. Is that a tool that you use too? Do you schedule in your sacred creative time before anything else?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. When I work with my clients, one of the first things we do is, which I think is important to touch on, is we actually look at why we want to create, right? You need to have like a strong enough reason why you want to be creating, or stuff's going to take you out in general. So that's the one piece, is like looking at, okay, why is this important to me? And for me, when I looked at it, it's about me, but at the same time, I know that if I don't take that time to create, I am like a mean mom. Because my fuse gets really short, and I become not as loving to my husband. And people start to kind of annoy me a little bit because I'm not taking time for myself. I get really, it's almost like a prickly feeling on my skin. Like I feel like too many people are like pushing at me. And so I know in order to be the best mom I can be, to be the best wife I can be, to like really influence the world the way I want to, I have to take that time for myself. And so every morning, my practice, and I encourage women to find their schedule and what works for them. I work with women to do that. But for me right now, I get up at 4:30 in the morning, my time, and I have 15 minutes. I have a minimum of 15 minutes of my creative like journal that I work with. And I have my meditation time before the house rises, before my kids get up, and before I rush them off to school. So it's like this anchor for me that really sets my day off. And when I miss it, it's like I just feel like I'm catching up the rest of the day, jumping from thing to thing to thing.
And it's like that's your spiritual time. It's your connection to yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And I love that you wake up early. Many people that follow my brands know that I wake up every day between 2 and 4 a.m. It's my sacred soul time. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years. I wish I could tell you it was a conscious choice, but I think my body just changed. And the one thing I noticed when I began loving and accepting my new body clock was, and I find this no accident, Amber, my creativity, my connection to my intuition in those hours are multiplied. And I've realized that connection is, wow, my business has grown rapidly since I've incorporated that new schedule. Now, I do not have young children in the house, but there's something about that time frame of early morning, not checking emails. I don't check technology. In fact, I try to stay away from it till 9 a.m. That's when I get my best work done because I'm downloading and connecting, and I have my morning meditation rituals. Do you find that even if you took that same block of time that you take every morning at 4:30 and moved it to another part of the day, do you notice there's an energy difference? Because I do.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's really funny you bring this up, Linda. In the Hawaiian tradition, we believe that between like 1 and 5 in the morning, that's when you're most able to connect to spirit. That it's like the world has quieted, and now you can really listen. And so I love that you said that. So yes, there's an absolute different energy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because for me, it's such a beautiful time of day. In the last 2.5 years, my intuition has opened up at an accelerated pace. My creativity, my focus. I get more done. My poor team. I get more done between 2 and 9 a.m. when they're walking in their virtual doors, and they're like, "Oh my God, you got all this done already? It's only 9 a.m." But I tell them, listen, when you run out of steam when you're at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm already winding down because I've been up for 12 hours. You know what I mean? So it's just learning where your energy is and when you can connect with a divine source that feeds your creativity. So I'm glad we talked about that because I think everyone has a time of day that works for them. I have a girlfriend who could never do mornings. Her creative time and time with the divine is late at night before bed. And I tried that back many years ago, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work for me. So it's learning to adjust when when it most works best for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's just another example of creativity, right? That our uniqueness, we're all so different. And, when I work with people to create their schedules, it's like we actually start with like version, I call it 1.0, right? So like we come up with a schedule, and then it's like, okay, what works, what doesn't work? Okay, we're going to tweak it, version 1.1, 1.2, and we keep, tweaking until we find like the individual, the personalized schedule that works for them, right? We're so different.
Now, are those some of the tips that you suggest for people who want to create but say they can't find the time? Do you have any other little secrets you use with your clients to help women create and find the time but also own their values so that they want to create the time?
Yeah, well, the first step, like I mentioned before, is like really finding your why. Why is creativity important to you? So that's going to drive everything. And then, the second thing would be your schedule, like creating a schedule and then tweaking it. And then the third thing that is so, so huge is having some sort of accountability or a partner, right? That for me, I'm just straight up. Like I can motivate myself to a certain point, and then like I just don't want to do it. I'd rather just sleep, or whatever comes up for me. I hit my comfort zone, the outside edge of it, and I just don't want to do it. And so I have to have some sort of support. So I encourage women to, find a creativity buddy. So whether that means like you connect via text or send an email and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, or you just jump on Skype together and you're just both in your own space creating, whatever you need to do to have that accountability, because there's going to be a point when you want to give up and when you want to stop with anything, not just with creativity, with any project, with anything you want to birth in the world. That's different and that's difficult. And so it's like having that space as well. So yeah, once you have the schedule and the structure, then having that support.
And it's funny because in masterminds, business masterminds, we have accountability buddies and, different terms for it. I love having a creativity accountability buddy because it's a completely different energy and vibe, right? You're not in your head, you're in your heart and creativity. So you want someone that gets that. So I love
when I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm talking right over you. When I think of like for business masterminds, the reason why accountability is so great is because it helps you like get your business done, like get you making money, whatever you need to be doing, right? Focusing on the right things. But oh my gosh, imagine if you take that principle, and it could be accountability, sisterhood, circle, whatever you want as far as support, and bring it to like what's most important to your spirit. It's like, yes.
Yeah, because I just love it. As soon as you use the term, I love it because it's a different energy. So I'm already thinking of a girlfriend, and this is so funny that we're having this conversation now, because my birthday month is in October, and I have committed that my birthday month will be committed to fun and play. And one of the things I committed, I haven't picked up a paintbrush in many years, that I don't know if your area is doing it, but there's restaurants here that do wine and painting parties.
Oh my gosh, they're so fun.
Yeah, and I've never done one, but I've always wanted to. I said, that's it. I'm doing it. And I have a couple clients in this area that I may invite and family members and make it a girls' creativity night out. So this is just another validation that I'm being led. And a few of them I know want to feed their creative soul, and I love the idea of a creativity buddy to say, Linda, hey, have you picked up a paintbrush today? Did you do a doodle? Did you do something that you committed to doing?
Yeah, I love it. And, it's really interesting because I have, my community's all online, right? And so it's the same thing because sometimes, for women, part of my mission is so women don't feel isolated, right? And part of that, getting out of isolation is connecting to your creativity, which connects you to spirit. But also is, finding that support and connection. And so I do that online, but if you can do that in person, that's like, oh, there's just something so nice about hugging someone in the flesh.
Oh, yeah. I'm known for my virtual hugs on social media, because like you, most of my community is global. But I'm blessed that I have, because I started as a print regional magazine here in New England, I still have connections with this New England area. So I used to love holding women's circles in my home. And I haven't done that probably in, 7 years, since probably right before I went digital. And like you just said, I miss that part. I miss the physical hugs, the real hugs, not just the virtual hugs, and connecting with women and feeling their spirit. So I think there's a little tidbit for me to dive into more there of maybe that's something I could do this month to treat myself during the birthday month. So we'll be back in a moment with Amber from theradiantmama.com. And when we get back, we'll be talking about what do you do when you have lots and lots of ideas of what to do, but you can't seem to get started? Or, if you're like how I was many years ago, have lots of projects that you never finish. So we'll be back in a moment.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Isn't it time for you to listen to your own internal compass, your intuition, rather than listening to all those around you? When you learn how to navigate using your intuition, you'll discover how to hear your soul's whispers so you live a life of purpose, joy, and abundance. Soulwise Living mentor Laura Clark provides women with the empowering tools and support to help them tame their inner critic, calm their emotions, and ground themselves so they can hear, trust, and act upon their inner guidance. If you're ready to awaken your intuition, visit soulwiseliving.com to schedule a complimentary Sacred Soul Chat, read Laura's inspiring blog posts, and discover an array of free supportive resources.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. This is Linda Joy, and we're going here with Amber of TheRadiantMama.com. Amber, what do we do about that? What do we do when we have so many ideas we don't know where to get started? Oh, yeah, that's creative types. That used to be my biggest issue.
I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this.
Or I would start everything and leave, nothing would get completed.
Yeah. So there's, when I look at creativity, there's kind of like a 4-step process that I work with women, moving them through that creative thing. But first one is looking at getting clear, right? And what I find is that many times, like we talked about earlier, as women, we're scattered. We've got our energy all over the place with our partners, with our kids, in our businesses, in our jobs, with our parents, with our friends. And so part of it is to actually just kind of bring your energy into one spot, right? And when you get clear, when you slow down a little bit, and we talked about earlier, align, when you just slow down a little bit, bring your energy in one spot and align, then you're able to really look at all those different ideas. And it's not like, oh, I could do this or this or this. It's like, okay, what do I really want? What would really nourish me right now? What would feel good to me? And you're going to find that you can't drop down from like maybe 20 ideas to maybe, 2. And at that point, then I say, depending on your project, just choose one for now. And part of you, like the creative part of you, is going to rebel and be like, no, I want to choose them all. And I want to say, you can, but we can't do them all at the same time. And because what happens then is that you get scattered, you get your energy all over the place, and then you don't actually finish anything you want that you start, which you were talking about earlier. And so the first piece is gathering your energy. And then the second thing that we move into is looking at structure. And we talked about this before with schedule and support and stuff, but being like, okay, what do I need to do? What structure and boundaries do I need to create so I can actually, really work on this project, that I can really, spend my time and my attention on what I want to work on. And then after that, once you have the energy and once you have the structure, it's easy to tap into your intuition and your creativity. Stuff flows, right? Instead of it being bombarded with lots and lots of different things coming at you. And you can take that time creating. And then lastly is the energy of focusing and finishing. Now, this is where a lot of creatives, we get kind of tied up a bit because we see a shiny object. We're like, oh, I'm going to start that instead of finishing, right? But there's an immense amount of energy and this amazing feeling when you finish a project. When you actually, I'm using the example of painting, when you paint the edges of your painting and sign it. And you're like, I am done. There's this whole wellspring of energy that comes up. But just like if you're going to birth a baby and push a baby out, it's I think about that last bit when you're creating, a project and you're getting to the point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to move on to something else. It's kind of like in transition, right? There's a point where a woman's she's pretty much fully dilated. It's right before she's ready to push and she's like, I changed my mind. I don't want to have a baby. I don't want to do this. This isn't fun. I'm done, right? And it's right before the breakthrough. And so I just want to just use that reminder that we're birthing things, our projects, our writings, our, whatever creative thing that we have, it's a birth. And so know that there's going to be a time of pushing. And part of what helps is, I think about, we talked about support earlier, is, for me, when I had my boys, I had a doula and I had a midwife. So I had those women there that were like, you can do it. Gazillions of women before you have done this. You're right there, having that support across the finish line to finish. And then you can celebrate, and then you can go right back to that other thing that you're like, oh, I want to do that. You can go right back to there. But if you try and do too many things at the same time, you become immobilized. You can't take action. You get stuck. And so this is a way to keep your creativity flowing, right? So not be greedy about how many things you need to do at the same time. Be like, okay, I'm going to trust that this is the thing I'm going to do, and then this is the project I'm going to birth. There's some trust and tapping into spirit that happens with that.
I love what you said about finishing it, because for me, and especially in my 20s and 30s, I would start a lot of creative projects and never finish it. And I'm sure you know what that feels like. It starts to become an energetic weight of judgment on ourselves, even though we might not say it out loud, but it's like, oh, there's that basket of cross-stitch, there's 2 paintings I didn't finish, and there's the sketchbook that I started to do this project in. It's this energetic of I didn't do it, I'm not worthy, I can't follow through, and it becomes a story. So I love the steps that you just walked us through, because of especially the focusing and finishing, and of course the celebration at the end. Because once we clear that up, we're also clearing the weight of the energy off us, which will open our creativity even more.
Exactly. When I first start with women, and if they're feeling super, like you talked about, like feeling that weight of a lot of unfinished projects, I have them do what I call like your lowest hanging fruit, meaning like what's a project you have that's not finished that would be like the easiest one to do. That's like, okay, I could just wrap this up. And to just do it, just so you get that energy back. It's like just finish it up and then boom, use that energy to do a different project. And you're going to know that it's like just like when I talked about, bringing your energy back from other places and getting really present, the same thing happens. It's like you're gathering the pieces of yourself that have been left, in your half-finished project. Yeah.
It's so true, and that's how I used to feel, and it's so empowering as you're pulling it back. I love your advice of starting with the smallest, easiest one first, because then you're like, oh, my God, I did that. I'm a rock star, and you bring that energy into the next one. I want to thank you, Amber, for being here and for the amazing work you're doing in the world to remind women that they are creative souls, that they have this within them, and it's okay to create time in their lives to birth what's in their heart, right? And not put themselves at the end of the to-do list, because though they think they're coming to your events for creativity, really what I discovered in attending them and sponsoring it is it's also this gift you have of reconnecting them to themselves. So I just want to thank you for that work that you're doing, because it's touched my life and many in my inner circle. So thank you, Goddess.
Oh, you're welcome. I received that, Goddess, with love, and let's keep shining bright. Come on, ladies, shine your creativity and get it out there. People are waiting for it.
Oh, yes, they are. And I want to thank everyone for joining me for this episode of Inspired Conversations. Join me every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern for more sacred conversations just like this one, with visionary women who are here to share their feminine wisdom to support you in living your best life. For even more inspiration, claim your free subscription to Aspire magazine, which includes over 40 transformational gifts, and you can do that at subscribe-to-aspire.com. And until next time, choose love, choose joy, and choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.